It is often said that the most perilous form of betrayal does not commence in the bedroom, it commences in the stillness. In the voids where another's voice ought to have resonated. I perceive your presence. I am known as Hannah. I am 39 years old. I am a spouse, a nurturing figure, a woman who once thought she could never embody that role. Yet the reality is, I did not engage in an affair. I stepped into it, gently, gradually, as if easing into a soothing embrace after enduring the chill for far too long. I had shared my life with Mark for 14 years. We were blessed with 2 children, Emma, aged 9, and Lucas, aged 6. A canine companion known as Milo. A 2-story house nestled in the suburbs, adorned with beige siding and featuring a white porch swing that remained untouched. I found myself in a state of contentment. At least not the sort of unhappiness that people often discuss. There shall be no abuse. Silence prevails. Simply separation. Mark found himself engrossed in a whirlwind of activity. Perpetually weary. Perpetually gracious. We shared the same team. Not lovers. Not even acquaintances at times. Each day seemed to unfold in an endless cycle I was powerless to escape. Containers of sustenance. The act of laundering garments. Provisions. Invoices. Grin. Imagine. Reiterate. It all began with Emma. After watching a video of a girl gracefully playing Claire de Lune, she implored me for lessons. Mark declined. It's beyond the budget. I agreed because I wanted her to experience something beyond the mundane. Because I required a deeper experience beyond the mundane rhythm of everyday life. I discovered a local educator through an online search. Her name lingered in my mind like a whisper. Avery James. At the age of 32, she stood poised at the intersection of youth and maturity. She conducted her lessons from her home, a mere 10 minutes away from ours. Her voice on the line exuded a serene composure. Exacting. Cozy. I found myself anticipating nothing beyond that. Little did I realize she would be the first to stir a sense of nervousness within me in years. On that Wednesday afternoon we stepped into her studio. Emma grasped my hand, her energy bubbling over with delight. The air was infused with the warm scent of cedarwood, mingling softly with a hint of delicate perfume. A Steinway grand piano occupied the corner, its polished surface gleaming softly in the light. Sunlight cascaded through the lofty windows. Avery lingered by the bench, a gentle smile gracing her lips, her shoulder-length dark hair framing her face, adorned in a tailored black blouse. Her gaze lingered on me longer than I had anticipated. Then he knelt down to meet Emma's gaze. "Shall we create music together?" she proposed. Her voice was a blend of sweetness and an edge that cut through the air. Perched on the brink of the couch, observing Avery guide my daughter's tiny fingers onto the keys, an emotion stirred within me, one that had long been dormant. A sense of alertness washed over me. Each week I accompanied Emma. Each week I remained. I convinced myself it was for Emma's solace. Yet the reality was I required that space. Avery's voice was essential to me. Her tranquility. The way she gazed at me, as if I were more than merely a mother clutching a purse. I felt as though I were something entirely different. One afternoon, following the lesson, she remarked, "Do you engage in play?" A chuckle escaped my lips. I once did. In a distant past. "Make sure to arrive earlier next time," she remarked. "Allow me to reveal something to you." I inclined my head in acknowledgement. Yet my hands trembled uncontrollably. On the subsequent Wednesday I arrived ahead of time. Emma found herself at a friend's abode. Only the 2 of us remained. She settled onto the piano bench, giving it a gentle pat. "Take a seat," she instructed. I did indeed. She performed a straightforward duet, offering me the melody. Our hands danced in unison, fingers gliding over keys, yet never meeting. Yet, in some inexplicable way, it seemed more personal than anything I had experienced in the last 10 years. Upon our completion, she turned to me and remarked, "The melodies within you remain." A smile graced my lips. Yet my heart raced with fervor. It had been years since I had received such a deeply personal compliment. Not authored by Mark. Not from any source. From that moment onward she occupied my thoughts. Exceeding what was necessary. She tucked her hair behind her ear with a delicate grace. Her attentive ear was a marvel. She embraced silence with a deliberate grace, never hurrying its gentle presence. I would find myself lying awake in the stillness of the night, envisioning her hands intertwined with mine once more. This time the piano remains untouched. Uncertainty enveloped me, leaving me in a state of confusion. I felt an undeniable certainty that every aspect of my being. I craved an unnamed desire that lingered within me. It began to dawn on me. It was not the melody I yearned to revisit. Thus commenced the journey. Nothing has transpired thus far. There shall be no kisses. Truth prevails. Yet a shift had occurred. I had transformed, and within the depths of one's being, I was aware it was merely a question of time before the melody that connected us transformed into something altogether different. Affairs, in my view, are not mere accidents of fate. They were crafted piece by piece. A glance, a simple statement, a moment stretched beyond its intended length, and at times the individual who swings the door wide. It is you. On a Tuesday, the world unfolded in its usual rhythm. Emma was afflicted with the flu. I reached out to Avery to cancel. She remarked, "It's all right. Stop by regardless, just you." Her words slipped from her lips like a gentle whisper, as if she understood my need for it, as if she had been anticipating the instant I would find myself alone once more. There was a moment of uncertainty. I agreed. Upon my arrival, the curtains hung wide open. The piano remained undisturbed. Yet her attire was far from the norm. There is no black blouse available. Pants devoid of structure. She donned a relaxed gray sweater. Unshod feet, without any adornments. And she gazed. Exquisite. Uncomplicated. Captivating. She filled our glasses with wine. Crimson. Fluid. Our conversation skirted around the subject of music. Our conversation drifted toward the subject of men. Her former partners. My partner in life. She uttered, "You seem like the kind of person who doesn't experience much physical affection." I found myself laughing uncontrollably, then too gently, then not in the slightest. For she was indeed correct. We relocated to the couch, alongside one another. The gentle contact of knees. She spoke of closeness. How many individuals conflate intimacy with validation? What makes one feel more exposed in a conversation than within the confines of a bed? I confided in her that I felt unseen. I had folded myself into the role of a wife, until the contours of my former self faded into obscurity. Her gaze lingered on me, stretching out in silence, then murmured, "I perceive your presence." She extended her hand. I tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. Yet I remained unyielding, remained steadfast, for the simple reason that I desired her to. My desire for it was overwhelming. I neglected to experience any remorse. Her hand brushed softly against my cheek, lingering in a moment suspended in time. Gentle, cozy, as warmth follows a prolonged chill. And then, she leaned in, her curiosity palpable. It lacked any sense of urgency. It lacked any semblance of violence. The pace was languid, calculated, as if she were allowing me a moment to reconsider my choice. I declined to accept it. Her lips radiated warmth. Her fingers gently cradled the nape of my neck. As I pressed my lips against hers in return, it transcended mere desire. The subject matter revolved around sorrow, on the subject of selection, concerning the experience of perceiving a voice that speaks. Your existence holds significance. In silence, we drifted apart. She gazed at me and spoke. "Are you all right?" I inclined my head in acknowledgement. Yet I found myself not in that place. For I sensed that a door had been opened. Not merely longing. Yet there lies a profound essence beneath. Perilous situation. I departed that evening, leaving without a farewell. Tears streamed down my face for the whole journey back. Not due to any sense of regret. Yet I failed to do so. Not a single moment. Mark reclined on the couch, in a state of drowsiness. Television broadcasts the latest updates. He cast his gaze in my direction. "Is everything all right?" I acquiesced with a simple yes. His lips brushed gently against my forehead. For the very first time, I experienced the unsettling sensation of being an outsider in the very existence I inhabited. As I stood beneath the cascading water in the shower, the water is excessively hot, fingers trembling, and I murmured her name softly to myself. Feels akin to a revelation. It was the night when everything transformed. The night the line became indistinct. It disappeared. I had transcended the confines of mere womanhood. Or perhaps a mother. Or perhaps a spouse. I had transformed into a person who understood the sensation of being desired once more, and found it hard to envision never releasing that sensation. There's no one to caution you about the allure it holds. Not the intimacy. Not the excitement. Not even the peril. What transforms into an obsession is how it occupies the voids within you. That remains unnoticed by others. Following that initial kiss, an unspoken shift occurred in our connection, yet in a manner so subtle that it would escape the attention of all. Her smile lingered upon seeing me. I remained in the car, patiently biding my time until Emma's lesson came to a close. We performed as usual. Flawless. Yet, beneath the surface, a current had taken shape. It tugged at our hearts each week. And then, on a fateful day, we ceased our struggle. The origins of it all escaped my memory. It was simply raining. Once more Emma found herself unwell. I arrived by myself. As if I possessed a justification. She gently pushed the door open. There are no inquiries. Silence speaks volumes. Our lips met before I had the chance to shed my coat. This time there was no hesitation. It lacked any semblance of delicacy. It was necessary. She guided me to the rear chamber. Not the room with the piano. A cozy nook adorned with bookshelves and inviting soft chairs. And there, upon the ground, we discovered one another. As if we had been deprived of sustenance. From that point onward, it settled into a familiar pattern. I devised justifications. Emma seeks additional opportunities for practice. I left my phone at Avery's. She is assisting me in organizing the recital. Mark never dared to question. He had grown accustomed to my taking charge. Accustomed to my presence slipping into the shadows. As I navigated the familiar spaces of my home, a profound sense of invisibility enveloped me. I found myself yearning ever more for the electrifying sensation of being noticed by Avery. What began as a weekly occurrence soon evolved into a bi-weekly ritual. Twice transformed into any moment I could seize for an hour. At times she would send a message. The dwelling stands vacant. I would abandon all else and set forth. At times I would find myself lying in bed next to Mark. The lingering flavor of Avery on my lips. What of the guilt? It existed in that moment. Yet it grew gentler. Like the ambient hum that lulls you into slumber. Our conversations rarely ventured into the territory of what we truly were. It remained unlabeled. There was no necessity for that. It was in the manner she extended her hand toward mine in the shadows. She leaned in, her forehead gently resting against mine as she whispered, "Please don't fade away." In the stillness, the quietude, time seemed to stretch and linger in that moment when her gaze met mine. In her presence, I was more than merely a woman. I was desired. I existed. Within the confines of my abode, life continued its relentless march forward. Emma's academic performance, the outbursts of Lucas, lists for groceries. Mark continued to be himself, unaware, compassionate, dependable. He would lean in and press his lips to mine, bidding me good night. And I found myself pondering. How could he remain oblivious to it? How could he remain oblivious? That my body had attuned itself to another's cadence? On a particular evening, my phone was left resting on the kitchen counter. Ascended the stairs to give the children their bath. Upon my return, Mark perched upon the stool, device cradled in my palm. He remained silent. I just inquired, "Who is AJ?" I stood still, caught in a moment of disbelief. My heart shattered wide. I was not truthful. Indeed I did. It was stated, "Avery James, Emma's teacher. We communicate regarding the arrangement of our schedules." He cast his gaze in my direction. Extended. Challenging. Then a nod followed. And returned the phone. Yet there was an unmistakable depth in his gaze. Had transformed. We found ourselves balancing delicately on a thin line. Swaying to an unseen rhythm. and I was aware of it. Yet I found myself unable to cease. I had ceased to fall. I found myself submerged in the depths of the water, with reckless abandon, with open arms, because nothing in my existence had ever resonated. This is real, even if it were a fabrication. In every affair there exists a pivotal moment, where imagination meets the tangible world, where your deceptions can no longer find a place within the silence of unspoken truths, where your gaze betrays you, before your lips part to utter a sound. The moment arrived more swiftly than I had anticipated, and when it finally came, breathing felt like an elusive art, one I had yet to master. Mark had always followed a familiar path, unwavering, utilitarian, yet now, he was filled with questions. He observed when I adorned my lips with lipstick. On a Wednesday afternoon, he inquired about the reasons behind my decision to begin taking showers prior to dinner rather than following it. And then on a fateful night, he inquired, "Do you find joy in your life?" I stood still, caught in a moment of sheer disbelief. I confessed to him the most despicable of falsehoods. "Not yes. Not a refusal," I declared. "What prompts your inquiry?" For the reason that I was unable to reveal the truth to him. Not at that moment. Not at this moment. With Avery, it had always been about the fleeting moments, the hours we claimed as our own. The symphony of silence enveloped us as our bodies intertwined. Yet, she began to pose inquiries as well. "Do you ever find yourself thinking of me when you're at home? Have you ever felt the urge to escape? Have you ever found yourself wishing that our paths had crossed earlier?" And I followed through. Each day I found myself longing for that. Yet I was also aware, should this come to fruition, it would obliterate all that exists. The day of Emma's spring recital had finally come. Avery requested my assistance in organizing. I agreed. We practiced in unison. Delayed. Frequently. Our fingers glided across the sheet music. Our knees brushed against each other beneath the tables. In each hushed nook of the school auditorium, I sensed her gaze upon me, as if it were a question lingering in the air, waiting for a response. Mark occupied a seat in the front row. Emma donned a striking blue dress. Her performance was a captivating display of beauty. Subsequently, images emerged. Households. Colorful orbs of joy, floating gracefully in the air. Avery positioned herself beside me. Near. Excessively near. She murmured, "I take great pride in her. Yet, my thoughts of you linger more often." I chose not to reply. Was unable to, as Mark had merely pivoted and observed us. On that particular evening, we made our way home in quietude. The children drifted off to slumber in the rear seat. Mark fixed his gaze forward. As we entered the driveway, he switched off the engine and proclaimed, "Are you sharing a bed with her?" My heart ceased to beat. He refrained from raising his voice, did not lay blame, simply inquired. A man who seemed to possess the knowledge all along, who had been aware of it for some time, and could no longer bear the weight by myself. I parted my lips, yet the truth lingered trapped within the confines of my mouth. Thus I murmured, "I apologize." He remained silent. He stepped out of the vehicle, stepped through the threshold. I lingered in that spot for a full 10 minutes, perhaps an extended duration. The lights of the house glowed brightly, yet I remained still. In that fleeting instant, all that I had created crumpled. The following dawn, I made my way to her abode. No call received. Without a hint of caution, she pushed the door open, beheld my visage. I didn't inquire at all. As I stepped inside, I took a seat on the piano bench. She lingered just behind me. She encircled my shoulders with her arms. She rested her chin gently upon my head. In that fleeting instant, I allowed myself to entertain the thought that perhaps this, whatever this may be, might suffice. Yet, beneath the surface, I was certain it wouldn't be. It is not meant for her. This isn't suited for my taste. Not for the existence that awaited me. Affection and hurt can often appear indistinguishable. At times, it is the very thing that stirs you from slumber, is likewise what rends you asunder. This moment, with each inhalation, I sensed the fissure expanding, deepening, between the person I once was and the person I could never return to being. There exists a fleeting instant. Once the affair is laid bare. Once the words have been spoken. Once the harm has been inflicted. Where one simply remains in the quietude and inquires, what comes next? He refrained from slamming doors. He remained silent. He effortlessly gathered a bag. He pressed his hand gently against Lucas's hair. Pressed my lips gently against Emma's forehead. As he stepped outside, he pivoted in my direction, his gaze imbued with a profound melancholy, and proclaimed, "May you discover what you seek." And then he vanished into thin air. 18 years of shared existence, completed in a single phrase. After a week had passed, Emma inquired, "Where is Daddy?" I conveyed to her. He required solitude. Her gaze met mine, and for a fleeting instant, her face mirrored my own. Far from the naive youth, yet the girl destined to blossom into a woman. Perhaps in the fullness of time, allow her to make her own mistakes. I felt a deep urge to shield her from such harm. I felt compelled to caution her. How do you convey to your daughter that at times love endures? Does it simply grow weary of remaining unnoticed? I found myself at Avery's once more. Not from a place of yearning. Yet it was merely a matter of routine. She graciously invited me inside, ignited a candle's flame, caressed the keys with a gentle melody on the piano. We shared an intimate connection, as two souls entwined, grasping tightly to the familiar as it teeters on the brink of conclusion. The excitement had faded away. Merely sorrow. Subsequently I remarked, "I can no longer continue to return here." She inclined her head in agreement. She was already aware. "You were never truly mine, Hannah," she uttered. "All you ever wanted was for someone to acknowledge your presence." I remained within the confines of the house. Mark settled into a new apartment on the other side of town. The children alternate weekends. The routine shattered. Each morning I awoke to the stillness I once longed for, and now dreaded. I removed our messages. I decided to unfollow her on Instagram. I cleansed the fragrance of her lotion from the pillowcases. Yet, regardless of the fervor with which I scrubbed, she lingered in my thoughts, refusing to fade away. On a quiet evening I penned a letter. Not addressed to Mark. Not for Avery. For my own reflection. The woman I once was. I expressed my apologies to her. I apologize for rendering her so unseen, that she needed to set fire to it all, merely to experience warmth once more. I expressed to her how much I longed for her presence. A woman who held steadfast to the power of trust, in the quiet pleasures of life, in loyalty that required no evidence. With a gentle motion I folded the letter, placed it within the confines of a drawer, and abandoned it in that place. Just a gentle nudge of the person I never wished to be again. This is not a tale of romance. It is not a tragedy either. It serves as a lesson. That which is observed. It is not worth sacrificing your true self. That yearning isn't always affection. Yet love alone may not suffice. The most excruciating truths are the narratives we weave within our minds. Long after silence has enveloped the room, a marriage has slipped through my fingers. A friendship has slipped away from me. For a fleeting moment, I have become unmoored from my own essence. Yet I am rediscovering her once more. Gradually. Softly. To be frank,